Hello and welcome to The Final Frontiersman, a YouTube channel about all things Trek. I'm Bill, and today I will be looking at and reviewing a little bit of an older board game called Star Trek 5-Year Mission. As usual with our reviews, we use the alert system: yellow alerts for things to draw your attention to, red alerts for the things we think are great, and the rarely used black alerts for the things that are groundbreaking and game-changing. So let me jump into the little window and let's talk about this game. So again, this is Star Trek 5-Year Mission. It is by Mayfair Games. I believe it came out about a decade ago, maybe around 2015, if I'm not mistaken. This is a cooperative dice placement game. So it is a dice rolling game. Every turn you will roll dice. You will take those results that you get and try to apply them to accomplishing objectives on the board. This is for 3 to 7 players, so it is meant for a group. There's no solo mode here. It is a team-based game, and it is a cooperative game. If I didn't say that the first time, it is a cooperative dice placement game. So you are all working together. You will either win together or you will lose together. There are no individual points in this game. So, taking a closer look at the components, I'm going to give this a red alert because I really like this. So, red alert! Here we go. First, you can choose between either the original series or next generation characters, which I thought was really good. A lot of times these games, a lot of times Star Trek board games, it will either focus on one specific crew or it'll have a mishmash of pretty much every crew thrown in there willy-nilly where there's no rhyme or reason. Technically, you could, I would suppose, potentially have one character from TOS, one character from TNG, blah, 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 mix them all together. But technically, it's supposed to be played with the entire crew of one starship. The ship itself has its own board in here, and you choose from either the original series Enterprise or the Next Generation Enterprise. So everything flips over. And another interesting thing, which I might forget to mention later, so I'm going to mention it now. The cards, the actual event alert cards in the game, they have icons on them, so you know which cards to use if you're playing the original series or if you're playing Next Generation. Some are used in both games, but it helps keep it a little more thematic, a little more, at least visually thematic through a game. So I thought that was really nice. But the interesting thing I'm getting to, each player, again, it's up to 7, so each player you take a character. So if it was Next Generation, Captain Picard, Riker, Dr. Crusher, so on. For the main cast, they are numbered 1 through 7. So in your first game, it's recommended that you play in the numerical order. So if you're only doing 3 players, you'll play characters 1, 2, and 3. Which in this case is Picard, Riker, and Dr. Crusher. But it does say that after your first game, you can pick and choose whichever characters you want, though they do recommend you always pick a captain and a doctor to go with your crew. So you pick the characters. They each have a special ability on them that gives them a little bit of an advantage in some aspect of the game, and it makes them unique. So whichever character you are getting, you are going to have some unique thing you can do to help your team win the game. Now, the reason why I'm giving this the red alert, aside from the fact that I like that it includes both crews and you choose the flavor you want, but the other main reason I'm giving this a red alert is the abilities of the 2 different crews, while somewhat similar, are not identical. So the TOS characters are going to have a different version of the abilities than the Next Generation characters. So it's not just a visual flavor. It's not just changing what wallpaper you like for playing the game. You're actually getting different abilities. And if I might be honest, I think the original series characters, which I haven't played yet, I always pick TNG because, you know, that's my thing. The original series characters seem to be a heck of a lot more powerful for the most part than the Next Generation crew. Next Generation crew, they're not slouches, but when I looked at the TOS side and reading it, like, my God, that looks powerful. So I do want to go back with another group, play again with TOS side, and see if it makes the game a bit easier or if there's any noticeable effect. But they are not identical powers, so you do get 2 distinct groups. And I think that's also a reason why you probably shouldn't mix Next Generation and TOS characters together, although you could, because I think they are balanced to help each other out. And if you're flipping one side TOS, one side Next Generation, it might throw off the dynamic, although that might make for a nice challenge. What do I know? But anyhow, I thought that was really, really cool. TOS does seem a little bit stronger, so I'll have to try that out later. Let me know if you played it. Stand down, red alert. So here we go. So in this game, you pick your character, you have your starship, and then there are 3 decks of alert cards. Blue alert, yellow alert, and red alert. So these 3 are the events that you are going to be encountering in the game. Blue alerts for the easier, simpler objectives. Yellow alert for a little more challenging. Red alert for the most dangerous, most challenging objectives out there. So to start the game, you always start with one predetermined blue alert card. I believe it's called To Boldly Go, or The Mission Begins. My memory just escapes me as soon as the camera starts rolling. But you always start with that one. It's a simple one. And then on your turn, you start by drawing one card from any of those 3 decks. I'll get to that in a second. You choose which alert you want to trigger, and you flip one down. Now, these decks, you can have 3 alerts, 3 event cards from one color. So 3 blue alerts, 3 yellow alerts, 3 red alerts out at any given time. If a 4th card of that color would be placed, instead, the oldest card, so it would be at the top of the column, the oldest card is failed. You failed that objective. You failed that alert. That gets put into the failed pile, and then the card that came out, that is the new 3rd card. So that does add kind of a pressure element to it, that if you get too many cards of a certain alert coming out, you really have to rush to try to accomplish one of the objectives at least in that column that is overflowing, or else you run the risk of failing one of those objectives and it goes to the fail column. So what's the problem with failing? Well, in this game, the way you win is by earning victory points. Some cards, not all objectives, not all of these alert event cards will have points on them, but some of them will have a little Starfleet Delta symbol on it that will be 1 point. So depending on what difficulty level you play, you'll need to get at least 10 points or more, 10 for the easiest difficulty and up, in order to win the game. Now, how do you lose the game? Well, one of the big ways, and probably the easiest way to lose the game, is by failing 5 alerts, failing 5 of these event cards. So no matter what difficulty you put it as, easiest difficulty, you need to complete objectives that have a total of 10 victory points on it. But no matter what the difficulty is, it's always going to be 5 alerts lose you the game. So it does add a lot of pressure, and it does make things a little bit tense the more you start getting too many cards in one of the columns, yellow, red alert, and you run the risk of failing them if another one pops out. So that's kind of where the big challenge comes in the game. And that's not to say the easiest level is going to be easy, because there's some tricky combinations of these alert cards that come out, but that's how it goes. So again, turn starts, you choose one of those decks to draw a new alert from. That gets added to the table. Then you roll 5 dice, and you start the game with 5 dice. And there are 3 different colors of the dice. You get 1 yellow die, you get 2 blue, and 2 red. So 1 yellow, 2 blue, 2 red. You roll 5 dice, you roll those, and then you apply the dice that you roll to the objectives, trying to complete whatever the required dice are on a single card, in which case you successfully pass it. You either add it to the victory window if it has a victory point on it, or you throw it to discard, or it might even have a special ability that it lends you, in which case you will keep that card until you choose to use it on your turn. So once you get done with that, you place your dice, you keep the rest that you don't use on your board, and then you pass it over to the next player's turn. that's pretty much how the game goes. It'll follow that flow. On the next time your turn comes around, you now probably have fewer than 5 dice because you already did on your first turn. You probably placed some of them. So what happens is, how do you replenish your dice? Well, when an objective is completed, when an event is completed, any dice that are on this card get put back into a common pool, which is on the starship card. So when your turn comes back around, you can draw dice from that common pool until you have up to 5 on your board. So first time around, you always have 1 yellow, 2 red, 2 blue, but the next time around, you can pick and choose any of the dice that are there, add it to the ones you didn't place in your previous turn, you roll those, and you keep going from there. So that's pretty much how the game is played. It's really extremely easy to play. It's very simple to play. The challenge comes in trying to get the correct dice placed, not only on the cards, but make sure that the dice you're placing are going to be on objectives that are completed either by yourself or by another player, so that way those dice get added back to the pool, because there are no more dice than the ones that you start with. So if it's a 5-player game, then each player has the same 5-star dice. There's 25 dice in the whole entire game. If you're placing dice on random cards, but they're difficult to complete and nobody's able to complete it, you might not have enough dice in the pool when your turn comes around to draw back up to 5. So you're rolling fewer than 5 on your turn, which makes it even more difficult to complete any of the objectives. So there's a lot of teamwork, there's a lot of strategizing going on, a lot of table talk at the game to try to decide who is doing what objectives to go after, what objectives need to be done to get dice returned back to the pool. Not just dice back, but also colors, because remember, there's only 1 yellow per player. So if it's a 5-player game, there's only 5 yellow dice in the entire game. And if you have many objectives that require yellow dice, and those yellow dice are locked on cards because those objectives are not yet complete, you're in big trouble. So that's where a lot of the strategy in the game comes in. Now, in addition to that, there are a couple other points of strategy or things to look out for. First thing is, you could get injured. If you notice on the character card, it says injuries. If a card, usually an alert when it comes out, it'll say such and such character is injured, or injured the character or the player to your left, or if this mission is failed, if this alert is failed, injure so and so. So if you get injured, you will take 1 of your dice and place it in the injured column or the injured box on your character. This still counts to the 5 dice you get at the beginning of your turn, but any dice in the injured box on your character card cannot be rolled. So if you're injured twice, you have to keep 2 dice in the injured box, and you're only rolling 3 dice to accomplish your objectives. Now, there are ways to heal, and especially the doctor characters, it's easier for them to heal themselves and other players, which is why they recommend having a doctor, but you have to be aware of that. On the flip side, or maybe not a flip side, but similarly, the Enterprise itself can become damaged, again, by the actions of these cards that come out, or by failing those cards. If you notice on the Enterprise board, there are 6 circles on them. Those are the 6 levels of damage. You start the token on the very first one. It's a blue circle. There's 2 blue, 2 yellow, 2 red. If the Enterprise takes damage, you move that token up to the next circle, going from left to right. That means it has 1 level of damage. There's usually a red die above the damage level where it's at. That's a red die that you would have to apply to that board to repair that point of damage and move it back 1 space. Now, there's also something a little bit, not tricky, but a little bit concerning about the damage. First 2 spaces are blue. That means you can draw alert cards from blue, yellow, or red. Now let's say you take 2 points of damage and you're not repaired. That token goes into the yellow circle. So now you're in the yellow column. That means that any alert you draw when it's your turn can only come from yellow and above. So yellow or red. So you can't draw the easier blue alerts now until you repair that token back into the blue zone. Likewise, if it gets up into red, you can only draw red alerts. So that's why it becomes really important that if the alerts start damaging the ship or things start damaging the ship, you need someone like Jordy or Scotty to get on it and repair it back down so it stays in the blue and you have all your options open. Because if that thing gets into red and you can only draw, every player can only draw red, you're going to start overflowing that column and failing those objectives left and right. As I say, it only takes 5 to lose the game. So that's one of the more interesting challenges. And I wasn't sure when we played how often starship damage would come up, but it was coming up frequently. Unfortunately, we had Jordy in the game, and he was able to, every turn, repair it back down, keep us safe. But I could imagine if you didn't pick Jordy, if you didn't have an engineer in there, how extra challenging it would be if those repairs keep, or those damages keep going up, making things a heck of a lot more difficult for you. So that's about it. That's about the gist of the game in general. Again, going back through, on your turn, you draw an alert, you draft back into your total up to 5 dice. You need to have 5 dice total, so whatever you have left over, plus from the pool, you'll draw that. If the pool's empty, you're in trouble, but you'll roll the 5 dice, excluding any that are in the injured box. The results that you get, you apply to any objective that's currently out there. If the objective is complete, you score it if it has a victory point, or discard it if it doesn't. If it gives you a special ability, you keep it, and the dice that are on that card that's completed, whether successfully or failed, that goes back to the common pool for the next player to be able to draft on their turn. If you accomplish enough alerts equal to whatever the victory level is that you set, at least 10 or higher depending on difficulty, you win the game. If you fail 5 alerts, you lose the game. And I did mention for the damage, if you get the Enterprise damage past the red line, so the 6 point of damage will destroy the Enterprise and you will lose the game there also. That's it. That's pretty much all there is to playing this game. It's very simple like that. But let's take a closer look at the alert cards, just to make things a little bit clear. While most of the dice, they can be placed piecemeal around any of the alerts that are out there, maybe one on this card, one on that card, however you see fit. There are some alerts that will have a black box around multiple dice. What that means is all the dice inside that black box must be placed at one time. So that means as one player, I would have to complete that little black box simultaneously. I can't put one in there and hope one of my teammates finishes that off. Anything inside the black box means it has to be done in one go. So that adds another bit of challenge and strategy inside there. Now you will also see some with this icon. I might be showing it on screen. I hope I am. That is a timed mission. That is a timed alert. So when that comes out, the game has a little sound timer. I believe it's a 3-minute timer. You put that on the card, and that alert needs to be completed before the sound timer runs out, or it fails. Doesn't have to be the same player completing it, but you have to move fast within 3 minutes to make sure multiple players have the chance to try to complete it. If the sound timer runs out, the 3 minutes are up, you fail the objective, it goes into fail pile, 5 fails, game over. So it adds a little time pressure element in there. If you ever get multiple cards with multiple timed objectives on it, the first one keeps the timer. So whatever card comes out first, that gets a timer. As soon as that timer runs out or that objective is completed, you wait for the timer to, of course, reach its conclusion. So you could start it again at 3 minutes on whatever the next timer card is out. But it's only one at a time, has the time limit going on it. Once that's done, if there's any other time limits out, then it moves to one of those cards. Another one, you will see alert symbols on them. So a yellow alert symbol or a red alert symbol. That means that even though you pick that card as your alert, it's also spawning another alert, a second alert, of whatever color is on that. So you might draw a blue alert, but it has a yellow alert icon on it. That means you're also drawing a yellow alert card too. So that's why you kind of have to be a little careful. And I know the player I was playing with, he was really nervous when we had 3 yellows, 3 reds in there, and he was scared that he was going to draw a blue alert that spawns another yellow alert, causing us to fail because that would be the 4th card. So you have to keep that in mind. It's like, oh, okay, well, yellow and red's full, so we'll just pick from blue. That doesn't mean you're safe. Once you get to 3 in the column, you really need to try accomplishing 1, getting 1 successful, so it's moved out of there so you don't accidentally pop it. It's kind of similar to Pandemic in that regard. And the last symbol that you might find on some of these alerts is the United Federation Planets logo. It's called the Prime Directive mark. If a Prime Directive alert comes out, that must be completed before any alert that doesn't have a Prime Alert symbol on it. Or a Prime Directive, excuse me, symbol on it. Did I say excuse me? I hope not. Excuse me. But you need to complete that. If there are multiple Prime Directive cards out there, it doesn't matter what order you complete that in. But if you complete an objective that doesn't have this mark on it, while you have Prime Directive cards out there, they will all fail simultaneously. And that could be a disaster. So anytime you get a card with that Prime Directive mark on it, that must be your main goal if you don't want to get a failure popping up for no reason. Now, there are some situations where you won't have a choice, but that's just one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're playing the game. Now, as I said, some of the alerts, some of the events will have special abilities on them that you will collect for one-time use if you successfully complete it. So take a look at what some of those icons are there. Some of them you can see it kind of easy to understand, most of them. Some of them will allow you to get a +1 or a -1 to a die roll. Some of them will allow you to re-roll dice. Some of them will allow you to change the color of the dice because, of course, some alerts want only red dice for one of the objectives. Some want only blue. Some want only yellow. So these abilities, when you get another one is also, excuse me, I just remember, you can copy the special ability from another player character on your turn. So when you complete successfully one of these alerts, you will keep that card until you use it, in which case it either goes to discard pile, or if it has a victory point on it, you put it in the victory window where it's easy to see how many points you have for everyone. And that's about it. That's about it for the components. I think I could get out of the small window and just talk about my thoughts for a bit. So here we go. So thoughts on the game. First, I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun cooperative game. Too many Star Trek games, too many Star Trek board games, especially, are competitive. And that's kind of disappointing for me in some regards, as the fact that what we see on Star Trek is a lot of cooperation, working together, unity, working as a team to solve problems. This is a game that allows you to do that with up to a full crew of 7 or 8 if you have the promo with Wesley Crusher or Janice Rand. So you all work together to win or lose as a team, and I think that's great. Now, it's very easy to play. The rules are very easy. With that said, the first 2 times I played, I screwed the rules up pretty massively. Because both times it was kind of like short notice, and I was pulling the game out and I'm trying to refresh my memory because I just read the rule book once, did a little practice run. But by the time I actually got it to test out with some people, I just skimmed it real fast. I missed some things, and lo and behold, it was not really fun either of those times. We had issues, and it's like I was missing something. Turns out, go figure, you play the game correctly, it's actually pretty darn fun. So when we played it, and when I played it to test out for this review in particular, we had a blast. It was really good. We played it correctly, and we had a good time seeing the different abilities bounce off each other, seeing the different alerts come out. It was really fun. There's no real like story or narrative or theme in the game inherently, but in the game we were playing for this review, looking at the alerts that were out and all the things that we as a crew were dealing with or had to deal with at once, it was kind of helping me, like as a Star Trek Adventures role player, build a narrative in my head, because we had Romulans we were dealing with, and then next alert came out was a Romulan warbird decloaked, but at the same time, Walks on the Troy came to visit the ship, so we're dealing with that whole you know how she is thing, and then there's phaser overloads, and it's like it was a rough day for the Enterprise. We did win, however, but there's no real narrative, there's no real story. But if you're creative, if you're imaginative, and you're looking at what comes out, and you're not just looking at what the dice objective are, you're looking at the actual title and the image. I think for a role-playing group, or for an imaginative sort, you could get a narrative building in your head of what's happening on this wild mission for the Enterprise. So for me, I thought that was fun, but it's not something built into the game. But I had a good time with it. The limited die pool in the game is really exciting, and that leads to a lot of the strategy elements. As I mentioned before, the fewer yellow dice, the fact there's only one per player while there's two of every other die per player, really, you have to be careful. If you get injured, you don't want it to be a yellow die that's injured. If you put a yellow die on an objective, you want to make sure that's an objective that could be completed relatively quickly by yourself or another player to get that yellow die back in the pool. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you need yellow dice and you don't have it, or any other color dice, but especially for yellow dice. So there's strategy, and as it's a team game, it's a cooperative game, you should be talking at all times. You should be communicating at all times, and that's going to lead me to a yellow alert. One thing to point out, there is a card, I believe it's called Communications Failure, that's in the game. This card adds a little meta level dilemma into the game, where when that objective is out, you and the other players, you are not allowed to talk, communicate, strategize at all until that objective is either successfully completed or it's failed. It's off the board. You cannot speak to each other. I thought that was clever. I thought that was an interesting idea, especially for a cooperative game like this. Situation where it could be really tense, and like, no, we need to get that done right now. We need to do this, You have a card that's like, okay, now you can't do that. Now you can't talk. You can't help each other. You can't plan together. I thought that's really clever, but there is a huge downside with that. Kind of a big downside that I noticed on the card with that. It's kind of difficult to successfully complete. Now, I wouldn't mind this card so much if it was more of a nuisance. Like, okay, it's not giving us points, it's not giving us a special ability, but we need to get rid of this card just so we could communicate, so we have to devote dice to doing this. If it had something like a 1 or higher of yellow, or like something like that, like set that's not really difficult, that's one thing, because you're throwing dice away that you don't want to waste on it, but you have to. However, I thought it was way too difficult, and there were times when I was playing this where that communications failure lasted too long, and that was affecting the fun of the game. So I don't know if the rulebook recommends, it might have, or it might have just been advice I read somewhere, to remove that from your first game, because you don't want that popping up with new players in your first time. But if it's not in the rulebook, I recommend that if you play, take that out for your first game, explain to the players what it is. If they want to play with it the next time around, by all means. But I thought it was just a little too, because you're at the mercy of the dice. It's a dice rolling game. If you don't get the exact values that it's wanting, it just stays in play. And if you have other things to deal with that are going to make you lose the game, you have to focus on that first, and then you might miss the opportunity to place the dice that's actually going to stop it. So I like the concept. I think it could have been tweaked or play tested a little bit more to make it more of a nuisance rather than just a huge brick wall that might disrupt the pleasure of the game. So that's my opinion. Stand down, yellow alert. Now another thing. Now some of the alert combinations, the event combinations, are brutal and trickier than others. For example, in the game that we were playing to test out before this review, we got in a situation where we were guaranteed at least one failure no matter what we did pretty early in the game, because we got one alert that said that each player, you can only place one die on your turn. Okay, but then we drew a prime directive card right after that that had a black box around 2 dice, which means we had to place 2 dice on that to get rid of the prime directive. But we can't place 2 dice until we get rid of the other card that's restricting us to 1 die. But if we get rid of that card, it's not a prime directive card, we automatically fail the prime directive. So we were put in a corner. There was nothing we could do but fail that card. And if another prime directive card like that came out, or 2 came out that were like that, we just automatically would fail all of them. So we had to quickly go and try to get rid of that one that was holding us back, even though that was going to make us fail the prime directive. So there were situations like that that kind of felt cheap, but it also added a little bit to the tension of the game. It was early in the game, so it felt like oh man kind of moment. If that was the last thing we needed, if that was, we had 4 failed and that was the last one that was going to make us lose the game, I think we might felt a lot more negative towards that. So there's going to be some combinations that are not fair to you, so be aware of that. Just make use of your character's abilities, special abilities, any cards you get. Try to get rid of those kind of annoying cards quickly if you can. But yeah, I think that's all. Final opinion. I think it's a great team experience. But I could probably, like I say, 3 to 7 players, 8 if you have the promo. I could see there being too much downtime if you're going over 4 or 5 players. I could see, especially with all the talking going on, the arguing, that it could become potentially a lot more difficult and possibly a lot more boring as you're waiting for your turn to come around, especially if the roll of your dice on your turn is a bit of a whiff and you don't really have anything you could do, which is very possible in a game like this, depending on what the board state is. Then you have to wait another 6-7 players until you get another go. That could hurt. So I think 4 or 5 is still a safe number to play it as. 6 and 7 might be tricky, but as a team game, as a team experience, even when it's not your turn, you are still invested because you're looking at what everyone's doing. You're giving your advice. You're all talking together. Just try not to be an alpha gamer. Let whoever's turn it is make the final decisions, but work as a team. Should be fun. But I like the game when you play according to the rules. It's fun. So I do recommend it. I believe it's out of print, but if you find it used, if you find it secondhand, or if you find it in the shop, nobody bought it yet, and you have a large group, a group of Trekkies, yeah, check it out. You don't even have to be a Trekkie. It's easy enough to play. It's simple enough to play. If you have played it, let me know what you think about it. When I thought it was pretty rough, I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be reviewing this one because this doesn't really feel it, but once I got the rules down correctly, yeah, it was fun, so I want to share it with you. So check it out if you can find it. Star Trek 5-Year Mission. I think it's fun for a group, cooperative game. Hope you enjoy it. So thanks again for watching. As always, stay safe out there, my friends. Live long and prosper. Peace and long life. I'll see ya.